Hello, this is Reindeer's Bees, and today I want to talk about one full beekeeping season in Maine. So what I realized when I was making this video was it's so important to know your flows and know what certain flower blooms do for your bees. So, as a beginner, you're encouraged to take notes every week, and I think that's a good practice. But I feel like a lot of people don't end up doing it. So if you're going to take notes about one thing, just write quick notes about what certain flowers mean for your bees. So when I see the clover blooming, I'm going to see a flow here in roughly 7 to 10 days. So that helps me plan when to put my supers on, how many splits I can make, how much comb's going to be drawn. It's all very helpful information to know. So write down some of your important blooms, and that way you'll know what it's going to do to the bees and what it means for you. So this video is going to be 4 parts. One for each season, starting in winter and ending with fall, and I hope you enjoy. One full beekeeping season in Maine. I like to listen to my hives in the winter months of December, January, and February to see if they're still alive. I will check them in early March and pick up the back to feel how heavy the hive is and add sugar if they're very light. Most beekeepers put on their winter feed in November or December, but I wait till March. And this is because I don't want them to eat my feed rather than their own honey in their top box. That if they eat only my feed, then they'll have way too much honey clogging up the brood nest in the spring, and this becomes a problem. Why I don't wrap my hives? I don't wrap my hives because I know my hives will make it through winter if they have plenty of bees in the fall, lots of food, and low mite counts throughout the season. So wrapping does help colonies, especially if they're small, but more important than wrapping is your fall and summer management. Wraps aren't going to be able to bail you out once come winter if you didn't do all your work during the season. I have never lost a colony in March, but it can happen. Spring, but not really. The last week of March or the first week of April, the crocuses bloom. The crocuses supply the first nectar and pollen of the year. This makes the bees want to expand really fast. This means you need to get pollen patties on as soon as possible. They may not need them, but it can help grow the brood nest. If it's cold and the bees are not able to forage and get pollen, they always have that pollen patty to keep the brood fed. Otherwise, they might cannibalize the larvae, and this leads to you having a smaller brood nest. On the topic of pollen patties, I found that the global patties are the ones the bees like the best and much better than the ones you can get from Man Lake or other bee companies, so I'd suggest the global patties. The maples begin to bloom in mid-April, and this helps the bees grow way faster because there's a couple different pollen sources coming in. Keep replacing the pollen patty till May. The dandelions bloom in the first 2 weeks of May. This causes the bees to go absolutely insane. It's the first real nectar source and can be a flow in good years. The bees' forage diversifies in mid-May. Many different plants are blooming and the bees can choose whatever they like. One of my favorite plants of the spring is the magnolia tree, seen on the right. This is the perfect time of year to graft. That way you can make splits in mid to late May with the queen cells. Swarm season starts in early May and continues till July, but the prime time for swarms is late May. This is caused by the Japanese honeysuckle, which puts out a great amount of nectar, definitely a flow. Clover starts to bloom in late May. The clover then becomes a flow in early June. The bird's foot truffle also starts to bloom in early June. This is the main flow of the year. The flow is super strong till the first week of July, where it stops. The flow abruptly ends in the first week of July. I pull all my honey off and add entrance reducers. Mite testing is crucial from the last week of June through September. I will treat when I hit 3 mites per 300 bees. This is typically between late June and early August for me. It is highly variable from colony to colony. I like to use formic acid, but you need to make sure the temperatures are below 85 degrees to treat with this. The goldenrod starts blooming in late July. It produces much pollen till October. If we get a honey flow, it starts around the 1st of September. It is generally nothing or over 100 pounds, so it's boom or bust. And if the supers are not full by September 18th, then I pull them off and let the bees rob them. I will also feed as soon as I pull the supers off. I feed 2-to-1 sugar water, starting in mid-September after I pulled the honey supers off, till mid-October. I found the bees can take 4+ gallons of 2-to-1 sugar water per week. I feed them for 3 to 4 weeks depending on their weight. I always do my final inspection the last Saturday in September. I check to see if all my hives are queen right and do any final combines. This is also a great time to do another mite check. I pull off feeders in mid-October. I'm a big proponent of feeding enough in the fall so you don't have to feed any during the winter or early spring. I think it's easier on the bees if they already have all the food they need in the frames rather than having to go on top of the frames to eat the sugar or the fondant or drink the sugar water later in spring. So make sure those hives are up to weight in fall rather than feeding them later. Then I do my final step for the year in mid-November when I hit them with oxalic acid vapor when they're broodless. This should kill 96% of the mites. So at this point the season's over and I just like to listen to my hives throughout December, January, and February. All these dates that I gave you, they're target dates. So I don't always get it perfect, and sometimes I'm late on, feeding or getting treatment on or whatever it is. Like this year I really had trouble getting my fall feeding done. It was a lot of work. I bought over 600 pounds of sugar and I didn't finish feeding till November, but those are my target dates, so I try to get it done by then. And I realize I'm not the perfect beekeeper and I never really will be, but I'm just gonna keep striving to do my best to get to all those target dates, and I know I'll have more success if I'm able to do that. So check me out on Instagram and Facebook, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.